And at three-quarter time, I remember going into the huddle just thinking, just put me in the midfield, please.
I thought we'd get close, not win. Jeff Kennett thought he was going to romp it in.
Do sport and politics mix? If you're an Australian, your instant reaction is probably a resounding no. I mean, one of our national pastimes is literally to boo the Prime Minister whenever they show up to a sporting event.
Anthony Albanese, the Deputy Victorian Premier.
So maybe the question should actually be, can one exist without the other? Sport is reliant upon state and federal government support, and from a political standpoint, nothing can unite the country quite like sport. Think the America's Cup triumph in 1983.
I tell you what, any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up today is a bum.
Or the Socceroos World Cup run in 2006, or more recently, the Matildas in 2023. So as we head to the ballot box in 2025, let's take a look back at a day when sports and politics mirrored each other in the most unlikely way possible. Alright, so it's Saturday afternoon, 18th of September 1999. Mambo number 5 is top of the charts, and Carlton are coming off a season where they limped into the finals with a record of 12-10. Unsurprisingly, they were belted by Brisbane in the first week of the finals, but they would go on to defeat the Eagles the following week.
There's the siren. Carlton, one game away now from the grand final. What a performance by David Parkin.
We were fortunate that we got West Coast Eagles here at the MCG, and what we did throughout that week is just tweak our game plan a little. We played really good footy on that day, so we walked into playing against Essendon with a little bit more confidence than what we had previous to Brisbane, and thinking by handballing the ball and moving the ball a lot quicker, it really assisted us that day, and we weren't going to change anything leading up to the Essendon game. But I do recall throughout that year losing to Essendon quite convincingly twice, and after we lost to them by 76 points later in that year, David Parkin said we were a B-grade team, and a lot of people were just expecting Essendon to roll through and almost like a training run for them. I don't blame them, but because they were a far superior team than what we were. But as we know now, anything can happen.
Hello and welcome to Election 99, coming to you live from the tally room here at the Exhibition Centre.
Meanwhile, the Kennett Coalition were red-hot favourites to win a third straight term leading Victoria, having held a 13-seat majority coming into the state election. Steve Bracks had led the charge for the Labor Party, who had not held a major government in the state parliament since the 1992 state election.
Look, there's no doubt that we were the underdog, and it was widely expected that Kennett would be returned for a third term. In fact, most of the polls were saying that. Interestingly, on the very day that I went down to vote at the Williamstown booth on that day, I met Michael Magazanik, who was an Australian reporter, and the front page of the Australian that day had a very late-breaking poll saying it was about 50-50 between Kennett and myself on the very last day. And Michael Magazanik asked me about this, and I said, I think the Australians are on drugs. You know, I didn't think that we would win. I thought we'd get close, not win. I think certainly that Jeff Kennett thought he was going to romp it in. Anyway, interesting setting for the whole day.
So Kouta from the last line goes short, still behind halfback Camporelli out towards the...
Back at the MCG, old foes Essendon and Carlton were locked horns in the preliminary final. The pair's first meeting in September since the 1993 grand final. The best prize you could get on Essendon that morning was about $1.18, with the Blues having finished 6th that year, hovering somewhere around $4.50. Essendon had lost just once since round 8 that year, finishing the home and away season with an impressive 18-4 record.
If there was one person that I'll never forget what he said as he walked into the change rooms that morning, it was our president, John Elliott. I love Jack, and I still believe he was the greatest president of all time at the football club. But I just remember him coming up to me and just saying, Kouta, I've got a funny feeling about today, in his unique way of speaking. And he just made me think about the history of the Carlton Football Club in the past and how Carlton were able to get over the line in games they weren't expected to, in particular in finals. And I know, growing up as a mad Collingwood supporter, what Carlton were like. No matter how far ahead Collingwood were, somehow Carlton would be able to get over the line. So I don't know if those words impacted other players in the team, but I think his positivity walking into the change rooms certainly changed my mindset. And before I knew it, I was walking in at halftime thinking we could be in another grand final here.
The first half went against the script, with the Blues leading Essendon at the main change by 24 points.
This is against all the odds. Most thought it'd be a landslide like the Liberal government today in Victoria. Brown goals!
However, by three-quarter time, a sense of normality seemed to have set in. Essendon would kick 7 goals in the third term to lead at three-quarter time by 11 points.
Barry Young's inside 50, goes for goal. Oh, Barry, you've done it! Sensational!
But Carlton coach David Parkin still had a card to play. Enter Anthony Koutoufides.
I basically played in defence all day long. I was really back pocket, but on Alessio, but still it looked like probably halfback that I was playing, moving up the field a little. And I felt like I had so much more still to give. And at three-quarter time, I remember going into the huddle just thinking, just put me in the midfield, please. And that didn't occur. And so I was a little bit disappointed then, but the runner was coming out to me. And a lot of the times I knew that the call would be Kouta, you're in the midfield. And I seen the runner run towards me and I seen him screaming. I just knew at that point that he was going to say you're in the midfield. And that's what happened. And I just remember not long after that, Justin Murphy having the ball at half forward flank. And I was basically on the wing. And I just remember sprinting in my head thinking, just wait, Murph. But obviously he's seen me and just bombed the ball in and I was able to mark that ball and then kick the goal. And then it was on to young and old after that.
Margin 11 points. Kicked by Murphy. Brown waits at the back. And waits. Doesn't have to. Koutoufides!
Definitely when you're, the Essendon Football Club and you can't get away, you just can't get enough of a lead to be confident to put us away, put them under pressure. And by us just kicking, I don't know if we kicked the next 2 or 3 goals, but they obviously then felt the pressure and it made it a lot tougher for them to be able to get over the line.
They proudly have won 16 premierships. Essendon next on the ladder with 15. They're trying to defend that against their arch rival, Ratton. Standing start by Ratton. Won't quite make it. Oh! Kouta again! Koutoufides has taken the last quarter by the scruff of the neck.
A few people said to me, it looks like there's an upset happening with Essendon and Carlton. So, yeah, I was aware of that. Just let it go in passing, but I could tell something was happening.
And meanwhile at the polls, the swing from Kennett's coalition to Bracks' Labor government was in full effect.
Seat after seat fell to Labor. A few independents have won some seats and it became a hung parliament. And I remember going to the celebration that night. Former Carlton player, Justin Madden, was actually chairing our election night function. An ex-Carlton player, and I thought there's great irony here. Kennett was favourite. Here's Justin Madden chairing our function with me coming in, the victor on the night. And it was probably one of the few times he was very pleased with an upset win for Carlton that night.
They are into the grand final. Carlton is into the grand final.
After their respective upset wins, Carlton and Bracks' luck would go in seemingly opposite directions. The following week, Carlton would go on to lose the grand final to North Melbourne, and then they would enter the painfully unsuccessful period that they're only just now starting to recover from. Steve Bracks, on the other hand, would go on to serve as the Premier of Victoria until 2007, when he would resign on his own terms at the height of his popularity. His time as Premier is reflected upon quite positively, as he focused on rebuilding public services like education, health, public transport infrastructure, as well as regional and rural development. And now, 26 years on, there's another dimension being added to this particular story of Australian sports and politics, as Kouta is now running as an independent and a heavy underdog in the 2025 federal election.
I think sport relates to a lot of things, and it's not just politics, but life and in business also. It really made me grow up as a young, immature kid as I walked into the Carlton Football Club. And in order to play senior footy, I had to grow. And at times I used to sit there and think, mate, if I wasn't playing football, I'd probably be out and about more with my friends, but certainly made the right decision. And everything I learned from football, its daily life and experiences, I can take that with me, once I retire from football, and everything that I do in my life. It's always out of your comfort zone is where you grow, and after finishing football in a period for the first 3 years when I was in a really low period and unsure of what I was going to do with my life, I always try to find a passion and something that I love, and a little bit like footy. Maybe footy was, made me a little bit different to anyone else, and so I enjoy being out there. And politics certainly wasn't something that I grew up with or something that I imagined myself being involved with, but as it happened, just by chance, I had an opportunity to be able to run for the Lord Mayor campaign in the city of Melbourne. And I took that opportunity and really enjoyed it. I met some wonderful people, and I love this country. And, I want to do what I can to really, what I believe is to propel the city back forward again. So I am running for the seat of Melbourne in the upcoming federal election against someone who's had a stranglehold of it for the last 15 years, and it's going to be really difficult.
And so what about the other side of the coin? What would have happened if those results on the 18th of September 1999 went as expected? You could argue that Essendon's season in 2000, which was nearly flawless, couldn't have happened without the heartbreak of the 99 prelim. And what about Jeff Kennett? He was a lot more divisive and polarising, and his campaign in 99 was built primarily on staying the course and not risking change. So where would Victoria be today if he had kept his spot as Premier? Honestly, we've got no idea, but that is a fun what-if conversation that we can have in the comments section. All we do know is that sport and politics just cannot exist without the other. Whether you like it or not, sports and politics are just inherently intertwined. So much so that they'll mirror each other, sometimes even on the same day.